Some days, the life of an online collaborative vocal improviser is a lonely one. When no one is answering our WhatsApps and spamming everyone in Discord only garners passive-aggressive auto-responses from bots, sometimes we have to stop looking outside ourselves and learn to instead find the jam within. If only there was a way we could sometimes have multiple versions of ourselves playing different musical parts. And when our friends do stop whatever they think is more important than jamming, then we could each have one of these mini choirs of ourselves and together create awesome multi-layered music that the angels of heaven themselves would be jealous of. Hey everyone, today we're going to learn how to become online loop meisters. By the end of this episode, you're going to be able to record live loops in online CVI jams and create compelling dynamic compositions with other vocalists. As a bonus, we're also going to find out how we can make live multi-track recordings of all of our loops so we can use the audio for live videos, studio recordings, composition, and sounding cool on the TikToks. Let's get into it. This video assumes you know how to set up your audio interface and use the Ninjam plugin in Reaper. If you don't know how to do that, then go back and watch this getting started video. There's also a link to this in the description. Loading the Reaper project file. The first thing you need to do is download and save the pre-made Reaper project file we'll be using for this tutorial. You can also find this in the description below. Create a folder somewhere on your computer, perhaps in that place where all your other music projects are meticulously organized with special colors and numerically sequenced folder names. Alternatively, at least move the file out of your downloads folder. Reaper will automatically save the audio you record inside whichever folder the project file was opened in, so things will become a tangled mess of audio spaghetti really fast if you're running this file from your downloads folder or from your desktop. Once the Reaper file has been moved somewhere you can at least remember, double click on it and open it in Reaper. Overview of the project. In comparison to the simple setup we used last time with one mic input, this project will make you feel like you've become a pro mix engineer. Feel free to press all the buttons, twiddle the knobs, push the faders, and then, when you're quite finished having a nice time, reload the project to undo all the damage you've done. But seriously, it is a good idea at this point to do a good old save as, give your project a brand new file name. Then you can go absolutely wild with creating your post-folk Bulgarian masterpiece, knowing that you always have this template to come back to. So what actually is any of this? Firstly, here again we have our humble mic input, but this time, instead of sending your voice out to the jam directly, your mic gets sent into Reaper's very own Super 8 looper. Press the effects button on the Super 8 looper track to see one of the most jankiest, gaudy coloured early 90s styled monstrosities of a user interface that has ever existed. But as the old saying goes, don't judge a VST plugin by its strictly functional graphics. The Super 8 looper is called the Super 8 looper because it's super, I guess, and it has 8 tracks of loops. You can select the 8 different loop tracks by clicking these wonderfully inspiring numbered grey boxes. As you can see on the left, your mic is automatically sent to one of the 8 loop tracks. These tracks can have different effects, you can set the volumes independently, mute them, etc. And this means that after recording a session, instead of getting a squashed and unusable soup of loop noise, you'll instead be the proud owner of a nice, tidy, multi-track recording. Want to pan each of your vocal loops to a separate space in the stereo field to become your own choir? Want to throw an octave down plugin on your solely vocals to sound like a burial track from the early 2000s? All of this and more is possible, my friends. If you want to see what effects I've added to each of the loops, you can click the track effects buttons. If you're feeling lucky, feel free to delete and add your own, or just pull some faders around and see what happens. I've made the first 2 tracks really dry. They have a little compression, a boost of the bass frequencies, and they're designed for rhythm stuff, but you can use them for talking as well. 3 and 4 have an octave effect. Okay, it's kind of crazy, and if you don't want it, then just turn it off. Remember, all you need to do is press the track effects button, and then just uncheck the box to disable it. That way, when you realize you do in fact want to wow people with your fat sub bass, then you can turn that puppy right back on. 5 to 8 are main vocal settings with increasing amounts of reverb. One thing to remember is that despite these 8 loop tracks, each track actually supports overdubbing, which means recording over the top of what you've already recorded. However, there is no undo button on the Super 8 looper, so if you record something questionable over the top of your surefire hit single in the making, you can pretty much kiss those future royalties goodbye. Or, re-record it. I don't know if this is the best way to set up this looper for you. In fact, it almost certainly isn't. But hopefully you can get a sense of the possibilities here and eventually find a setup that works for you. Using the looper with Ninjam. Of course, what we're really interested in is transcending our lonely looper life and joining the gilded pantheon of fellow singing angels in vocal loop heaven. But how do we get there? Well, it all starts by clicking this unassuming track effects button on the track I've labelled Ninjam. Then click Show Rear Ninjam Console. Before we literally lose our minds because of all the windows we have to keep track of, now's a good time to make a nice little panel setup with all your windows arranged so as not to trigger my OCD. Nice. For this setup, we're going to use the Reaper metronome so we can go ahead and mute the Ninjam metronome because really, who needs two metronomes? Check the Reaper metronome is activated. It's an icon that inexplicably looks like a UK motorway sign. Green means it's on. This time we also want to mute our own monitoring mix in Ninjam because this setup monitors our mic through the looper. Notice you can only hear your voice if you're selecting one of the aforementioned grey boxes. When Reaper first starts, for instance, or when you press the weirdly terrifying kill button to delete all your loops, the grey button is deselected and you won't be able to hear your voice, nor will it be broadcasted to the jam. Just reselect any of the grey boxes and your audio will be monitored and broadcasting again. Okay, let's get our sweet vocal loops into a Ninjam session. Just as in the first video, we connect to the Get a Room private room service. Then in the chat box we type !join and then the name of the room. Great, we're now in our room and we can see the BPM and BPI info. To sync our loops up with the BPM in Ninjam, we have to click the sync button. First we select Set Project Tempo. This will take whatever the BPM is in Ninjam and make Reaper and our loops that BPM. Next we click Sync again and choose Start Reaper Playback on next loop. This will start the Reaper playback and allow us to hear our metronome. Now in the Super 8 looper we have to set the sync in our looper to Project. In the length box we click and drag the number until it's the same as the BPI. This length is the duration of all of your loops. You'll find sometimes really short loops can work, and as you get more advanced you can use the halve and double buttons to quickly make your loops shorter or longer. For now though, we're going to keep it simple and just set the length of the looper to the BPI, which for this Ninjam is currently 32 beats, or 8 bars. My buddy in the jam is doing a single kind of drone note. But we're completely synced together now, so whatever we do will sound like a musically cohesive whole. There are so many things you can do with the Super 8 looper, but here are some of my favourites. The main thing you'll be doing is recording your loops with this little yellow Record Play Selected button. If you make a mistake, you can stop the loop by hitting it again, and then the next time you click it, it will re-record. Switch between playing the loop and overdubbing the loop with the rec button. There's one of these on every single loop box. Mute the loop by pressing the play stop button. I say mute because as long as your Reaper project is playing, the loop won't restart. It will resume playing wherever in the interval it happens to be. You can set individual loops to fade out rather than stop immediately by clicking the fade button. 1 is on, 0 is off. You can use the rev button to reverse loops and create sonic landscapes appreciated by drug users everywhere. Finally, press the red kill button to begin a nuclear war that will ultimately lead to the end of all civilization. Congratulations, you have now become a CVI Überlooper Mensch. Remember, especially when there are a few others in the jam, you can really be sparing with your loops. Try not to get stuck playing the same loops for too long, because that can get kind of fatiguing. Don't turn your loops into an oops. And don't be scared to press the kill button, which, just so we're clear, deletes your loops. We're about to cover how all your ideas will be saved anyway, so don't be precious. Change things up, experiment. The daimon favors the bold. Bonus: recording your loops. What's cooler than being able to use live loops to enhance your online CVI sessions? Being able to save your sessions using high-quality multi-track recordings, of course. This means we can revisit cool ideas and have a bunch of production-ready stems we can turn into finished songs. And luckily, with this setup, even my nan could become a recording engineer, because all we need to do to record our loop session is press the red button. As you can see, your loop tracks will be recorded down below, whereas the other people in the jam will be recorded in one audio file in the Ninjam track. You can hear your recorded tracks back by clicking in the timeline and pressing play. If you want to hear the other jammers' parts, you will need to temporarily disable the Ninjam plugin. There is a way to get multi-tracked audio from the rest of the people in the jam, but that's for another video. That's it for today. I hope you now feel confident in flying free into the unlimited skies of vocal loopdom. May your BPMs be groovy and your intervals long. I'll see you in the jam.